So, I'm Autumn Parkhurst, and I decided to do my presentation on abuse and neglect in the U.S. foster care system. So, the problem is that children placed in foster care are being abused and neglected. Of course, this is a problem for multiple reasons, but the main reason is that, these children are being placed in foster care for their protection. Many times they're placed after abuse has been disclosed, or it's been decided that the children aren't safe in their home anymore. So, they're being placed in these homes for their safety, not to experience any further abuse or neglect than what they might have already been through. So, before I start the presentation, I wanted to get an idea of how many children are abused each year. I found a statistic from the Children's Bureau, which is an office of the Administration for Children and Families. I found one of their child welfare outcomes reports on their website from 2014. And what it found was that state performance regarding the maltreatment of children while in foster care ranged from 0.00 to 1.42%, with a median of 0.27%. So I know that that number seems relatively small, but what we need to be considering here is that number's an average. So in some places, there's going to be more instances of abuse and neglect in foster homes, and in some places, there's going to be less. But the main thing to remember here is, unfortunately, we know that many cases of abuse and neglect do go unreported, and that, abuse and neglect in these homes shouldn't be occurring in the first place. Like I said, these children are here for their safety. So, to get more of an insight into the problem of abuse and neglect in foster homes, I found an empirical article entitled Seeking Safety: Finding Abuse, Stories from Foster Youth on Maltreatment and Its Impact on Academic Achievement. So, with this study, it was done on 11 participants, all of which are now over the age of 18, who were placed in foster care when they were young, some of which were placed in multiple foster homes. So, all of them now are pursuing higher education and agreed to be a part of this interview. So, the original study was to find the effect being in a foster home had on academic achievement. Pretty soon, the study got a little derailed and redirected, because upon interviewing all of these people, they soon found that all 11 of the participants had been abused in at least one of their foster homes, either sexually or physically. So I know that the study seems small, but I mean, that's kind of a high number when you consider 100% of the participants from different areas and different lives all had been sexually or physically abused in their foster homes. In many cases, the children made it known to social workers they had been being abused. In many instances, it was not reported. For one girl that was interviewed, actually, she told her social worker that her foster parents had been hitting her, and nothing came of her telling her social worker about that until one of her foster parents actually hit her so hard that they broke her cheekbone, and only after that was she taken out of the home. So, what we really need to be considering here is how we respond to the children that are making these claims. And we also need to be looking into, why are abuse and neglect happening in these foster homes? So, the next empirical article I found focused on some problems that could lead to abuse and neglect in the foster care system. So, the article was Improving Foster Parent Engagement Using Qualitative Methods to Guide Tailoring of Evidence-Based Engagement Strategies. So, what they did were qualitative interviews with foster parents that were identified as being closely related to the foster child's treatment. So, the interview consisted of asking the parents about barriers to foster parenting that they felt existed. What researchers found were a list of some concerns that foster parents typically had. So, the first one, general, was behavior management skills. So, a lot of these parents felt like they didn't know how to handle different situations with the child, and like they were lacking these skills. The next thing was general support and education about the role they're in. They felt like they needed, just in general, more support from not only the community, but from the foster care system itself and some of the classes they had to take. They really wanted more information about the child's background and past traumas, It definitely can have an impact on how these foster parents are parenting these children. Many of the foster parents felt they had an overwhelming amount of demands, from work to school to appointments. They just felt like they were really running themselves thin with very little help. The foster parents also communicated that they want better communication between therapists that the foster children might be seeing and themselves. I mean, ultimately, most of them want to help these children. They want them to have a better life. So they want to be involved. I mean, they don't want to just be on the sidelines for treatment. They want to be knowing why the child's doing this and, doing anything they can to help. So ultimately, what researchers found from this study was to have a foster care system with better foster parent engagement and better, more positive outcomes. We need to help reduce these barriers between foster children and their foster parents. Otherwise, we're going to see more negative outcomes that lead to more instances of abuse and neglect. So, the next empirical article I found was Foster Parents' Perspective regarding a new placement into their home. So, this was an exploratory study by the Journal of Children and Family Studies. For this study, researchers conducted interviews on foster parents who had been in two different groups. The first group had been fostering for less than 2 years, and the second group had been fostering for over 3 years. Researchers were hoping to get more of an insight into what made for successful placements for these different foster families. From the data, they concluded some different steps and different things that they really thought led to good transitions, both internal and external factors. So some of these factors were a sense of belonging. So making that child feel like they belong in your home, giving them a place to call their own, and that just went a really long way for these children. Establishing clear boundaries. So this can be really hard for foster children. Many of them are coming from chaotic environments where many times they don't have clear boundaries and they kind of are in a free-for-all. So whenever that they're introduced to these homes that have boundaries, it can be really difficult for them to adjust and they're going to push. And so that can be really hard for foster parents at first, but it is vital for a good transition. That way the foster parents have a sense of control and there's a sense of understanding when they provide discipline because the boundaries have been made clear. Another good transition is time management. So, having good time management skills and being able to set appointments and manage time effectively. Training. Foster parents need to recognize new relationships can take a while to form. They need to take advantage of the training that's provided so that they know how to handle situations. Finally, don't be afraid to ask or seek support. There is no shame in asking for help, especially if it's going to prevent another case of abuse and neglect for a foster child. Some external factors, birth parents. So, how the birth parents perceive you to their child. So, if the birth parent is, talking negatively about the foster parent to the foster child, that definitely can have a negative impact on the interactions between the foster parent and the foster child. So, birth parents definitely can play a big factor in this. The foster system and information provided. To have good quality background information can be really necessary for foster parents. That way they know, why is the child doing this? Where might this behavior have come from? And so they can better prepare for what situations they might have to encounter. From the study that I've been talking about is this image that I found. It's kind of a visual of some of the things I've been discussing. So to get those good transitions, we need to accept the foster child, develop them a sense of trust, and establish rules. All these different things kind of just in an image for you. So in conclusion, we learned with the Seeking Safety article that foster children are being abused and neglected. And, that many of these instances are going unreported. Then we learned that, there are some barriers and concerns that are leading to the negative outcomes. And finally, that foster parents' perspectives, we learn factors that lead to good transitions and really help these children. Overall, foster care is a vital resource, and we need to be taking steps to help these foster parents and the foster children who are in desperate need for our help.